Good evening, everyone. As a product manager, one of the most difficult skills to develop and implement on a regular basis are our soft skills. And today we have a very interesting discussion from our very own senior product manager at Product People, Angelica, talking about the hardest part of being a product manager, that are 8 soft skills which are very integral to have as a product manager. Before we go ahead, I would like to introduce myself. I am Juhi Amit. I joined Product People over 2.5 months ago, but it feels like forever. Since I've joined, I have worked with 2 clients, Zalando and Utopia Music, and it has been a really fun ride. All right, so a little about what we do. Our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products really fast. We do that by 2 ways. One, by empowering our community, which is now over 15,000 people. Thank you very much for being a part of our community. We couldn't have done this without you people. We share knowledge generously here. And at the same time, by managing and taking on all the unglamorous work of product managers, aiming to onboard fast, align teams, and deliver the best possible outcomes as promised. All right, so before we begin our talk, we'd love to get to know you a little better. We have 2 questions here, and they're both very much relevant to our talks today. Feel free to answer. To the people who are on the Zoom, you'll be able to answer it right on the Zoom. There'll be a pop-up where you can answer the question. For people who are joining us from other streaming services, can answer it in the chat or on the comment, and we'll collect that answer. So the first question is, what is the most important soft skill for a product manager? Options are 1, communication skills, 2, stress management, 3, proactivity, 4, empathy, 5, agency. And the second question is, how do you handle overwhelming days as a product manager? A, I cry in the bathroom between meetings. B, I run in the room like crazy. C, I scream and or cry. And D, I am overwhelmed. There should be, I mean, if it were me, I'd say all of the above on multiple occasions. Please take your time to answer the questions. I think for me, the answer to the first question would be communication skills, because they are really important to deliver any of the other very important parts of product manager. And for second, as I said, all of the above. If you're joining us from any other streaming services, please answer in the chat or comment section, and we'll collect your responses from there. Okay, the polls are closed. Thank you very much for participating. As we can see, the 80% of the people say that communication skills are the most important part of most important skills, soft skill to have as a product manager. And for the second one, 56% of the people say that I run in the room like crazy. And we have a small percent of people saying not overwhelmed, which is very interesting. All right, thank you very much again for your participation. Okay, so without any further ado, I would like to introduce Angelica Testini, our own senior product manager at Product People. Angelica, feel free to share your screen.
Thank you, Jury. Coming right up. So you guys should be able to see my screen now. Great. I'm happy that the winning answer to the second question was I run in the room like crazy. That's my favorite thing, that I think is my most used Slack status when I'm overwhelmed. So let's get into the talk. I feel like we talk a lot about what do we need to learn as a PM? What do you need to train on as a PM? But we speak a lot about hard skills, about things you actually need to be able to do and to learn, and we speak a bit less about soft skills. So I would like to help bring you more awareness on the soft skills that I personally think are the most interesting and that have helped me the most in my career. So this is a very personal collection. Don't take it as exhaustive. Don't take it as the unique source of truth. There's a huge amount of soft skills that you might need and might come handy, but this is my personal top 8. Few words about me. I'm Angelica. I'm a senior product manager 1 at Product People. I joined in March. Before joining Product People, I worked for a company called Amadeus, that is a leading IT software provider in the travel industry. And I was lucky enough to go through different roles around product. I have been a PM. I have supported PMs, coached PMs, depending on the need and the project. I have been working in the payments industry for the last 3 years. I have been lucky enough to collaborate with plenty of partners in payment industry providers during my time at Amadeus and later also via Product People. I've been working with startups and scale-ups like, for example, WeShare, that is an electric card sharing provider in Germany. Go Student is an ed tech. Utopia Music is a music fintech, which is a very new and incredibly interesting scale-up and actor in the industry, in the music industry. And last but not least, Cognigy, which works in the conversational artificial intelligence space. I am a physicist by training. I studied nanotechnologies and then somehow stumbled into computer science and product management and fell in love with product. I'm Italian. I live in France, as you can see by my background of the beautiful Antibes. And yeah, that's all about me. Let's get into soft skills. So before we start, I want to make sure we are all on the same page. And I love this metaphor of thinking at hard and soft skills as we think about the left and the right side of the brain. Hard skills are things that we can teach and that we can measure. Programming language, using data, a manual skill, a manual activity, a language, anything you can think of that you can actually measure, that you can quantify. Soft skills are anything that cannot be quantified and are very often related to the way we exchange with people, the way we behave with people, rather than just ourselves and what we can do. Curiosity, creativity, emotional intelligence, empathy, agency, communication skills, you name it, there's plenty of them. But they are very different, and the way we approach them is very different. And the way we can learn them is different. Yes, we can perfect those skills, but it's much more difficult and it takes much more time. And we need to be aware about what we can do and what we want to, where we want to be in terms of soft skills. So you're about to see my personal favorites and my personal collection. But before we get into that, I like to start with this, which is a very famous and common way to define the PM zone, to define the way, the area in which product managers operate, which is usually displayed as the intersection, the common area between, so the area where technology, engineering, design and creativity and business acumen meet, which means that as product managers, we are exposed to everything without necessarily mastering everything. We are often at the center, which means we often need to act as the connecting tissue between the different areas and the different groups. By that, we don't mean that without the PM, nothing can be done and we are at the center and we are needed at the center to achieve anything. No, but we are often in the middle of the discussions. usually not at the beginning, sometimes not at the end, but very often in the middle. And we need to be aware of that. We are exposed to that diversity of way of thinking and way of working. A quote that I really like is this: a great product manager has the brain of an engineer, the heart of a designer, and the speech of a diplomat. I love it. It's true to some extent, but I also think that this is a lot to ask from a single person. It is very difficult to master the three. I think it's impossible. Most of the times we master two, or we are better at two out of the three. But what is sure is that in our career, we'll be exposed to the three, and we need to be able to deal with that, to deal with some things that we don't necessarily master. So the result of this is that some days might be overwhelming. So I try to think about what makes our job stressful and how does a stressful day in my life look like? And this is what I came up with. So when I have overwhelming days, very often is because I have the dev team coming to me and asking, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? Why are we not doing something different? And the stakeholders saying, asking when a certain feature is coming, why we are late or whatever. And the leadership or the C-level asking for updates on OKRs or deliveries, customer support asking, complaining about features not working, or customer care complaining about customers unhappy. Whatever, these are just examples, but they are pretty realistic, I feel. And this doesn't make you a bad, this is not because you're a bad product manager. This is not because you work on a bad product. It doesn't matter how great you are. It doesn't matter how great the product is. There will always be, to some extent, people coming to you to complain or to report problems. That's part of the job. And I feel like with the right soft skills, you could be well equipped to handle this and not be overwhelmed by it, and make this just regular Tuesday. So, one disclaimer, you might have understood by now that you're going to see a lot of drawings. Probably the outcome of this talk is that I need to improve my hard skills in drawing, but I did them myself. There's no child was involved in drawings. I just wanted to make sure that I was conveying the right messages and using the right metaphors for what I wanted to say. So you are informed. Now let's go with the first, the one that I called keep calm through the storm. Some days will feel stormy, and you need to find a way to be calm, to take a step back and be calm, even through a storm. Something that I feel helps me is not to consider chaos as something temporary. Do not think, oh, it's just a crazy week. Oh, it's been a crazy month. Oh, it's been a crazy day. It's going to pass. It's going to go back to normal. Sometimes this is normal. You are exposed to a lot of requests. You have to handle a big volume of information, requests, complaints sometimes. So what if chaos was not temporary? What if it was there to stay? You need to find your own way to thrive in chaos. And it might be kickboxing or running in the room like crazy or screaming or just taking a step back, breathing, doing meditation, whatever works for you, find your way. But consider starting to look at chaos as something that is there to stay and is not temporary. Now, the second one is related to the first, and it's something I call learn from the bomb disposal agent. Now, bomb disposal agents wake up in the morning knowing that they're going to have to handle bombs and they're going to have a very risky day, and they're going to probably hurt themselves. They might, but they cannot be overwhelmed by that. They need to find a way to cope with it and to handle the stress. So as PMs, I feel like it helps taking a bit of distance and treating problems as our tasks. That's what we do. We handle problems, we fix problems. That's it. So maybe delegating some, if you are overwhelmed, could help if you feel like you have too much on your plate. prioritizing your to-dos. I'm not speaking about backlog prioritization, but your own prioritization, your own tasks, your own backlog, if you want, could help. These are things that I practice every day. For example, I treat one escalation per day, which means that I have my top problem of the day and I compare everything else to that, and I either replace the problem that I'm treating as an escalation, or I downgrade all the rest, which means that I will deal with them, but with a lower priority, and maybe tomorrow. So asking yourself, what should you handle with priority, is a very good exercise to take a bit of perspective and take distance and not be overwhelmed. A tip that also I would like to share and that works very well with me is being transparent about your priorities. Because sometimes if you say no to people, you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to handle it tomorrow. Or, you know what, I'm very busy today. That might not be enough. That might not be a satisfactory answer. But explaining to them why what you are busy with, or why you consider that their problem has lower urgency, might be very helpful to either have them understand your decision or give you information that you were not aware of, that you didn't have, to actually reconsider potentially your decision on priority. Now, number 3, put your money where your mouth is. This is related to agency. As product manager, you produce very little by yourself. You need to build a network, and you need to build a network that trusts you. This is very important. You need to work on that trust. And in order to have people trust you, you need to make sure that you do what you say you will do. If you cannot do something today and you say, hey, you know, I'm going to do it by the end of the week, that's totally fine. But if you don't do it by the end of the week, then people are going to start not trusting you. And they're going to be less likely to accept the next time that you tell them, you know, I'm going to do it tomorrow or whatever. So it is very important to nurture and maintain relationships that are based on trust. And it's important to do what you say you will do. Next one is feel the pain. This is, of course, related to the concept of empathy. Something that I would like to highlight, though, is that very often we speak about empathy with respect to your users, to your customers. And that is very true. You always need to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and understand what is their problem, what is keeping them awake at night. However, something that I also think it's very important is to apply the same principle to your stakeholders. Understand fully their problems and show understanding to your customers, users, and stakeholders, because you will very likely have to tell them no at some point. But it doesn't matter that you're telling them no, as long as you regardless of the answer you're giving them or the dates of feature readiness that you're giving them, you need to make sure you show empathy and understanding, because they are coming to you very likely because they have a problem. Tip: take distance between tasks, not people. You are handling problems. You need to take distance from the problems, but never from people. Product management is really about people, building connections and nurturing positive relationships with your users, your customers, and your stakeholders. This really makes a difference. Number 5, be the polyglot. This is my favorite drawing. Now, you might have understood by now that these are metaphors. They are not literal. So I'm not speaking about the languages you speak or might be learning. This is about discussing with people that don't necessarily share your background. As a PM, you interact daily with engineers, scientists, business, commercial representatives, marketing, communication, pricing experts. I am not giving an exhaustive list. This is just some examples What is true and what is common is that they do not speak the same language. They do not use the same words. They do not care about the same things. They do not have the same expectations. And you are very often in the middle of all of these discussions without necessarily understanding everything, but you need to make sure you have understanding to some extent. I have actually 2 tips about this. The first one is, it's okay if you don't understand everything. You are not expected to master everything. You cannot be a marketing expert if you are a PM, but you need to have understanding to some extent. What is very important is that you need to be aware of what you have and what you haven't understood, and mention if something is not clear. And sometimes you don't need to get to the details, but you need to be clear on how far you're going. The worst thing you could do is get out of a meeting and not sharing your doubts, going home with doubts. PMs should never be the ones with doubts. The second tip is, to some extent, saying the opposite, but it's true. You have to balance these 2 things, knowing when to stop. Not all PMs are engineers, and you don't need to be an engineer, but if you are, you might be pushed to have this desire to go deeper and deeper and understand and go to the details. And very often you don't need to. You don't need to understand everything, but you need to ask yourself, have I understood enough to do my job? Have I understood enough to explain this to the team? Have I understood enough to justify, to explain what's wrong to my stakeholders? If you do this exercise, well, first of all, you will understand if you've missed something. You will probably notice that there are some things that you still need to clarify. And second of all, you will avoid being overwhelmed because you're not loading yourself with the need to go to the details on everything. Number 6, be the broken record. It's not enough to just build a clear message. We speak very often about the necessity to building a message and being clear on what you want to communicate. And whereas that is very true, it's not enough, because you also need to broadcast this message, to share this message repeatedly to ensure alignment. Because alignment, it's not just something you gain once, it's something you need to work for. It's something you need to maintain and entertain. And this requires some effort. So first of all, don't be afraid to repeat the same thing if you think that brings value and ensures alignment. And second, my tip is, it's very, it can come handy to have some way to spread a certain message. Can be a decision, can be a roadmap or vision, whatever, doesn't matter. But some way to spread the information effortlessly, to have it handy so that you can say, hey, by the way, have a look at this. And let me know if you have any feedback. It can be 10 lines, 1 slide, 1 pager, doesn't matter. Just one way to effortlessly share the information with the different groups in your organization that might be interested in it or might benefit from receiving the information. Have it ready, it will really make the difference. Number 7, be the light in the dark. This is related to working with uncertainty. Very often, we might be pulled into a project that is early stage, or we might be dealing with something that has a very big technical complexity. There are different reasons why, but we might be in a context where we need to work with uncertainty. And well, it might be difficult for us first, but second, it might be difficult for the people that work with us and the people around us. So you should not only be aware of the fact that you are dealing with uncertainty yourself, but you should also be aware that people around you might struggle with that. And you have a role. It's might not be your responsibility, but you might have a role in helping them deal with it. It happens to me very often with development teams, but that's not the only case. Working in an unclear environment might not be natural for everybody. Something that I find helpful is, well, first of all, to share that, to share that feeling, to say, hey, I'm aware that this is very uncertain. I know that there are some things we need to figure out, but that's okay. We're going to find them little by little. This is the principle of the iterative approach, and trying fast and failing fast. It's all about this. So sharing that that's the feeling, that that's the mindset you're working in, might be helpful for other people. And also remember that you don't need to have everything figured out. Very often it's enough to just start from something and take it from there little by little. You're going to collect information and improve, and collect information and improve, and that can be applied to many things. And I think it's something that happens very often in our job. Number 8, this is the last one, be the fire igniter. It's very important to make sure that people around you are motivated. And again, it might not be your responsibility. You might not be accountable for people's motivation, for people's engagement, but you might be in a very good spot to understand that they are not motivated and ask for help or trigger that. This is very important because you can build the prettiest strategy, you can build the clearest roadmap, you can have the best outcomes of your analysis. If people around you are not motivated, it's not gonna get to where you want it to be. It's not gonna bring real results. So it is very important, never underestimate the impact of putting in effort to make sure that people around you are motivated. My tip is to be positive. We deal with problems, and it's very, very, very easy to always think about what can go wrong and which problems might happen and we might encounter, and what we haven't achieved, what we haven't done. It's so easy to get stuck into that. But that triggers negative thinking. So try to be positive and to say that, yeah, it doesn't matter if we have problems, we'll deal with them. If we have issues, we're going to try again. That's very simple, but very often it's a good starting point. It's a good place to be. Now, soft skills are very important also in the hiring process. So I just want to quickly mention this. As a hiring manager, if you are hiring PMs, be mindful about the soft skills that you're gonna need for that specific job. The list might not be the same for every position. So think about that. Look for red flags and positive signs associated with these skills so that you are sure that you're getting the right person for the job. Soft skills are way harder to learn than hard skills. This is very important to keep in mind. And if you are a candidate and looking for a job, self-inspect and try to identify which soft skills you do master for real and bring them forward in the hiring process. And also use that to make sure that the position you're applying for can be a good match for you. I'm not going to go into details because there is a community talk. So one of the events that we've hosted some time ago from Robert Choker from Delivery Hero that is all about this. And if you are interested in how soft skills are applied to the hiring process, please have a look because I found it very insightful. So I recommend you guys to look into it, and I didn't want to repeat or overlap with that. Just go and have a look. So this is actually everything from that I wanted to share. I was very, very happy to speak tonight, and I'm gonna hand over to Julie.
Thank you very much, Angelica, for the talk. It was very, very insightful, and I absolutely loved your presentation and the drawings. I hope our audience did too. All right, so now is the time for Q&A. People who are joining us from any of the streaming platforms, please feel free to post your questions in the chats or comments. People who are joining us here on Zoom, please feel free to raise your hand and ask your question yourself. While you are adjusting your questions, let me tell you some things about product people. So this is when you would want to collaborate with us. If you're looking for a product manager or product leader to fill in a position while you're in the process of hiring, which usually takes 3 to 9 months in Europe, or when you want to cover for a parental leave. At the same time, if you were looking for a product coach or consultant, you're in need of an expert service, we're here. And also for product discovery lead, if you're looking to scale or you're looking to go from 0 to 1, we can help you. We have a clan of expert product managers, and we help discover, ideate, and deliver value very quickly. Here are the snippets of some of the positive feedback we've received from our clients. We always feel very happy when we're able to deliver value that we promised, and we strive to do it on a regular basis over and over again. This is our team we are spread across the globe. We have people with like a huge diversity here, and I absolutely love that. And there's a little space here that can be filled in very quickly. As you can see, we are hiring across all levels of product manager, and we welcome you to join our wonderful team. All right, I am going to give you we have a few more minutes to draft our questions. And anybody on the Zoom, or if you want to ask a question, please feel free to raise your hand.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. My first question is about one sentence in your slides. You mentioned takes a distance from task, not from the people. Can you give us more information, or I don't really understand what does it mean for distance from tasks?
So it was related to something I mentioned in the second soft skill where I said it might be difficult to deal with so many problems and so many people coming to us with complaints, and it might be useful to take a bit of distance from these tasks, like stop, not be overly concerned by the fact that we are getting all of these problems, and like not starting to think, oh, the product is not good enough, it doesn't work, or not get into negative or toxic way of thinking. So taking distance from tasks might help you treating them in an aseptic way, to treat them in an objective way. However, if you apply the same thing to a person coming to you with a problem, then it might be difficult to, you might come out as not empathic. So it's very important to treat the problem as a task, but to still make sure you interact with the person on a personal level without taking distance from the discussion. Does that make it a bit clearer?
Yes, thank you. I have still another question. Actually, I am a software engineer, and I have also some training as a Scrum Master and product owner. If I want to switch my career from software engineer to a product owner or a product manager, what is your suggestion? What should I do as a first step?
I think that your knowledge or your experience as product owner is a good starting point. So definitely understanding the backlog, the prioritization, that's a solid way to start stepping foot into product management. What really makes the difference is switching your mindset to a product or customer-centric, user-oriented one, where you stop thinking about solutions and start focusing on what is the problem, what is the next thing that I need to address. that's the second. I would say that that's the most important transition that you need to make to become a manager. And once you do that, you will really be able to value your experience and your knowledge as software engineer, but you will always need to be mindful not to get too much into that, you still have to remember the three circles of tech, design, and business. You can't go too much into tech. As a product manager, you need to delegate that to the team. The team knows what to do. The team knows how to build things. You just need to help them understand what is the next thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? And while we are drafting questions, we have a question from LinkedIn from Priyanka, and she would love to know what other skills would you recommend for an aspiring product manager?
I think I definitely agree with the results of the survey. The number one non-negotiable soft skill is clear communication. And I didn't mention it in my presentation because I wanted to give I wanted to mention more unusual ways. Like I wanted to have a different look, a different perspective at this problem. But the number one thing is communication, written communication, and oral communication. So if you feel like that's not something you're mastering, find a way to tackle that. Take classes, try to improve on public speaking. That's a good way to do it. Try to improve your effective written communication. That is non-negotiable to me. That is the number one thing you need to master.
Okay, thank you, Priyanka, for asking the question. I hope it's answered. Next question is from Nilesh, who's currently pursuing MBA, and he'd love to know how do you identify the right industry to be a product manager?
That's a very difficult question to answer. There are some common traits in the different industries, and it's not a perfect science because very often it depends on the company or sometimes the country even, or the situation. But you can, there are some things that can make you think about a certain industry rather than another. I can give you two examples that are coming to my mind right now. For example, there's something I really love about the payment industry. It's super dynamic and goes very fast. One day you think you have figured everything out, you have understood how compliancy works, and you have understood the rules, and you know how to play in the field. And the next day, one of the countries decides that things need to change and there's a new security protocol that you need to apply, and it happens that fast, and now everybody needs to comply with it. And the rules of the game are changed. And so if you like that kind of fast pace and dynamic thing where you have you constantly need to reassess and question what you know, then the payment industry could be great for you. For example, if you feel like you need to interact with users in a B2C environment, then e-commerce could be a great place to look for a job, because the problematics of B2B and B2C are not the same. I personally like both, but if you have a strong preference towards one or the other, that could orient you to some choices rather than others. So there are some, it's very difficult to generalize, but there are some common traits that you can look for in the different industries.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nilesh, for asking the question. I hope it helped. Do we have anyone else from Zoom who would want to ask the question? Please feel free to raise your hand and Yeah,
I think we have one from Janet.
Yeah, okay.
I can try to answer in then, Janet, and I'm sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You can feel free to unmute to give more context if you want. So can you give, so I think we all have communication skills, but how effective they are can be debatable, and I guess everyone sees it differently. Can you give examples of typical communication problems that exist often, and how do you recommend to tackle them effectively with your experience? So I think communication issues are very vicious, and they can come in different ways, and they can appear in different forms. For example, not conveying the right urgency or priority, or not giving the right explanations to the team, to the development team, might lead to them taking different or wrong design choices for the technical solution that you might pay for in the future. Not asking the right questions to the stakeholders might lead to a misunderstanding of the urgency, and to you underestimating or overestimating the proportions of the size of the problem you are dealing with, or not being clear about what's going on or the issues that you are encountering. For example, in your team or your teams, might lead to people not understanding why a certain feature is coming late, and not having trust anymore in the capabilities of that team to deliver what's needed. Or over communicating can have a very bad effect. So finding the balance very often between what is worth sharing and what is too much is very difficult, and it requires a lot of practice. That for me is the most common issue, like either oversharing or not sharing enough, because you also don't give the opportunity to people to actually jump in and say, hey, you know what, you missed this, or actually it's not that urgent, maybe it can wait tomorrow, or oh, you know, I think you are underestimating the problem, you haven't considered this, it's very important. So giving the chance, like giving the right amount of information gives an opportunity to people to actually provide you the missing pieces that you didn't have. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay. You're welcome.
All right. Okay. Next, we have a question from LinkedIn. It's from Rastu, and he would love to know what are the technical skills you'd recommend a college freshman who's looking forward to becoming a product manager.
Sorry, can you say it again, Julie?
What are the technical skills you'd recommend to a college freshman who's looking forward to becoming a product manager?
The technical skills. I don't think there's something that is like absolutely necessary. Most teams nowadays work to some extent in agile development or with agile development like techniques. So I would say definitely look into that. Try to understand what that means and have a very minimal understanding of that. Being able to use the most common data tools might be like data analytic tools might be interesting, but at the same time, you never know what the company you will end up working for will actually use, and you cannot be sure that you know how to use everything. So having that flexibility to use different tools of the same kind, or like learn fast a new tool that you don't know but is similar to others that you might know, is also a very practical thing. I'm going to give a very stupid example. A lot of companies use Jira if you get into a company that works Asana, it should be easy to switch from one to the other, even if you've never seen it. So this kind of awareness of the type of tools, I mentioned analytics, but it's actually true for project tracking or road mapping or whatever, mural, whatever. These types of tools for product management have at least an example. A vague understanding could be very helpful. And also, of course, understanding of PM frameworks is always, I don't think that's 100% necessary, but having in mind some ideas, some examples to start your research when you need them, if you need new ones, is also potentially very helpful.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Rasul. Thank you very much for participating. We have another question from Alice on
we have someone with his raised hand on Zoom also.
Please go ahead. Olga, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for the speech, Angelica. It was really nice. And I loved your drawings. I felt they were resonating with me quite a lot. I have two questions for you. So first one goes like this. Many times as I work as a product owner, many times I find myself in situations where I have to communicate. I have to be a bridge between two different teams, or maybe more than two, who knows. But I then find out that these teams had totally different understandings of the problem, totally different ideas on how to solve it. Basically, there's a huge misalignment as a base. And if you throw in also emotional things inside, then this can very easily explode. And I was wondering if you have any best practices or maybe advice on handling these situations in the best way.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very common thing that everybody can relate to. I think I had the problem on Friday last week with two of the teams I was working with. It is very important so what I usually do is I try to speak to them separately to try and understand where the problem comes from to some extent. Like I try to have a very vague understanding of what's the issue, which type of issue we're dealing with. And sometimes that means discussing with my team and, for example, discussing with the PO of the other team or the representative or whatever, depending on the situation you're working in. But then I try to put them in the same room and have them, talk to each other without being, because to some extent, especially if we are speaking about technical issues or technical solutions, being in the middle is not always a good thing. So I try to understand how I can drive the discussion in a certain way and what is the goal, what I want to achieve. But then I make sure that they discuss, like that they find a mutual agreement. And also I make sure that they understand that finding a mutual agreement is their responsibility. It's not mine. It's their problem to agree on a technical solution. They need to figure it out. And it's okay if they disagree. Maybe there are multiple options, but they need to find an agreement. And I'm not going to be the one choosing the technical solution to go with. I just want the feature to work or the customer to be satisfied at the end.
Yeah, I think shifting the responsibility is a really, really great strength in this case. And my second question would be, you mentioned in your presentation that it's very important to keep positivity up. And I also wanted to understand if you have any best practices for keeping this positivity up. As a person living in Berlin, I sometimes very much struggle with this.
I understand that. I think smiling is a good place to start. As I said, I mentioned it briefly as I was speaking about this. It's very easy to focus on what can go wrong. So just saying out loud, hey, we will probably have issues, but that's okay. We have the skills to deal with them. We're going to deal with whatever happens. There's nothing that cannot be solved. So sharing that kind of awareness that things might go wrong and according to Murphy's law, will likely go wrong, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's, for me personally, a good place to start. And I find that when I'm open about that, when I say, hey, you know, it's okay if it goes wrong the first time, we're gonna try a second time. We fix it and we try it second time. That's sometimes contagious, and it doesn't work with everybody, because you will always have people who are strongly negative or who really want to keep being under that cloud of negativity. But it works with most people, and it's contagious to think in this way. So that's my personal go-to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you for joining us and participating. I think we had one more question in chat. It's from Yuna, and she would love to know if you've ever worked in a setting where there's a separate Scrum Master, an example, an external hire, and what is the impact of having a separate Scrum Master on your job or role as a product manager?
Thank you, Yuna, for your question. It has happened several times, and to be honest, I don't feel like that's something that should impact in any way your work. A Scrum Master is a Scrum Master. His or her responsibilities are the same. It's not something that the fact that they are external shouldn't impact the result or their engagement or their way to interact with the team or their care for the team. I think you can apply that to product owners and product managers as well. We work in Product Evo, we work as external hires, and that shouldn't really change the results and the way we care about the team and the way we interact with the team or with the Scrum Master. So if you're experiencing the issues, if that's the reason why you're asking the question, and I can only guess, but you can, you're welcome to unmute yourself and tell us. But if you are experiencing issues, probably, I mean, there might be a different cause. It's not just that they are external. They might be a bit less engaged or a bit less motivated or onboarded with the whole mission or whatever. So I'd suggest to try to dig a bit and understand where the problems really come from.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question. All right, we have time for one more question. It's from LinkedIn, from James. He wants to know that a question that's very frequently asked in interview is, what do you think can be improved in your favorite product or app? And he also wants to know, how do you answer that question? And as a product manager, if we should keep looking on the downside of the app.
I think it's always important to be aware of the shortcomings or the things that you might improve in your product. That doesn't mean that you will have to change them, because sometimes they might have a much lower impact than other things. So it might still be okay to keep them or to treat them with a different priority, but knowing about them is important. So being aware of them is important. As product manager, you are the person who should know the product best, who should be the evangelist to some extent of the product. It doesn't mean you need to know everything, but you need to have a fairly comprehensive understanding of how it works and for who and how and what's missing. So what's missing or what needs to be improved is for sure the best part, one of the important parts. And also another advantage of being aware of that is that if customers come to you with problems, you might find a connection with the shortcomings that you're aware of So it might be easier to handle them and to respond to that.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. I think we're done with the questions. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today and participating. Thank you very much, Angelica. That was a lovely session. I absolutely loved the presentation, and it was really fruitful. If you want to join again, as you know, we do this every week. You can know more about us and get more information on our meetup page, Product Management People. You can also chat with us on Telegram and support us on Patreon. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
We stopped streaming.